Hello and welcome to another episode of FEA's My Facility podcast, where we dive into the latest innovations, trends, and solutions in facilities planning and management. We will bring you conversations with industry experts, innovators, and thought leaders to help you navigate the challenges and opportunities in managing your facilities. At FEA, we're committed to building excellence where we live, work, and play. So if you're looking to stay ahead of the curve and improve your asset management strategy or facility financial planning, you're in the right place. So let's jump in and unlock the secrets to smarter facility planning in today's episode.
You mentioned your collaboration with the So Others Might Eat organization and some of the success stories you've had out of that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's one of my very favorite stories, very, very favorite stories. In 2018, So Others Might Eat, I went with a team member to present a workshop on how to do a federal resume. And these students were going through the building maintenance technician program. And there was one student, and this was 2018, and he stood out. He was a very young guy, very likable, and very tall. Very, very tall. He was the tallest one in the room. And he just honed in on everything we said so much. And you could see in his face, his eyebrows would furrow and he'd be like, and oh, you could just see that he was really engaged. And so after it was over, we spoke to him and we said, boy, did you get a lot out of this? Oh, yeah, I really got a lot out of it. And so we said, well, if you would be interested, we can help you prepare a federal resume so that you might be competitive for a job. And I said, but, the fact is, you don't have a lot of experience. And that's in the maintenance world, experience counts for a lot. And so we thought, well, maybe we could have him intern for us. And so we did have him come and intern for us for 3 months. And during the time he was an intern with us, we gave him the training on and the individual career counseling on how to make your federal resume really strong. At the end of his internship, he was hired to be a maintenance helper. A couple years later, he had some more training. He had some more experience. He applied for and became a maintenance worker. And just a couple of months ago, he was promoted to maintenance mechanic. And one of the reasons that this conversation stands out so much, this whole experience stands out in my mind so much, was that in my first conversation with him, I said to him, what do you want to be doing in 10 years? And his reply to me was, ma'am, if I can just make more than minimum wage, I'll be good. Now it's literally 10 years later. He makes considerably more than minimum wage. And I just went to a job fair last week with a couple of team members. And I asked him if he would please come and talk to the people at the job fair so he could share his experience with them. And that's just one very special story. And when we were talking about working on this podcast together, I went back and I put a timer on. I put my clock, my phone watch on, and I said, I'm going to give myself 3 minutes and I want to write down names of people that I know that I've been engaged somehow in their career journey. And I'll just write down their names. And so I wrote down in 3 minutes, I stopped at 15 people because I was just overwhelmed. And so then I went back to each of those 15 people and I said, I want to know your career path from the day you walked in the door till today. And I want to know every step in between. And so I'm not going to tell you 15 stories because that's a lot of stories, but I will say some very clear patterns emerged. Several of those 15 began as interns. And now they're everything from building engineers to maintenance mechanics to electricians to contracting officers representative to administrative.
Hmm.
And they came in that way. Several began as security guards at the Smithsonian. And they would see the maintenance folks going around and they would talk to them and they would do everything they could. And oftentimes on their own time and their own dime, try to get some experience outside of Smithsonian. And then they became competitive enough to be hired. And they've just advanced and advanced. A number began as building service workers. And they went on to be supervisors and assistant building managers or even building managers. One of our zone managers began, and that is our senior executive level, and became. The one thing that they all had in common was that they all earned their promotions through education, through applying themselves, applying their new knowledge. They didn't go to a class and sit there and go back and keep on doing the same thing. They said, oh, in class we learned about this or that. Can we try this? They are so successful, and there's more than 15.
Yeah.
I had to
You
stop
had to
when the
stop
timer
at some
stopped
point.
because it was just overwhelming. But as I sit here now, I can picture each one of their faces, the conversations we've had, I just had a conversation last week in the leadership class with one of the folks who was like, I just feel like I'm kind of sitting still right now, even though I got to this level and this was where I wanted to be. And I said, so what's your personal mission statement? He said, I don't have one. I said, what's your purpose? He said, I don't have one. I said, okay, I'm going to give you the name of a really good book to read. And the next time you come back, I want you to have your own personal purpose and your own personal mission statement. And then, because that matters so much to you, when you're in maybe one of those ebbs or flows of your career, as long as you are fulfilling what is personal to you, you're doing right. And you're going to help the organization. But sometimes we might work for a supervisor who doesn't get us or won't support us as much. And then fall back on that personal purpose and that personal mission statement. And I told him to read this great book called The Four Agreements. Great, very quick read, very short read, but it's a really, really good book for anybody in a leadership position to know about and read. And in fact, I just picked up a copy of it from a used bookstore over the weekend and sent it to my very best friend who just retired. And we periodically have book clubs over the phone. We FaceTime each other and talk about books. And she was very, very successful in financial planning in her career. And so we're going to talk about these four agreements and what they meant to us and how they fit in to our career objectives and opportunities and achievements. So learning never stops, never ends.
And I think, so much of these stories too is a testament not only to the program, but to you, I think, as a leader and what you've been able to do and the tenacity and that you've been in this for almost 50 years. You put so much of your time and effort into it. And it comes across every time you speak that it's a passion for you. And just like we were talking about before we started recording, and I always said you could go on to be like an inspirational speaker. There was one of the keynote speakers at one of the World Workplaces recently did a whole keynote based on what you just said. Like, you need to know your own mission statement. Like, you need to understand that, and it's not what you do. It's not your job, but it's more your purpose. So think about that for your next your next thing.
My next chapter.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I've had a lot of really good support along the way. I've had people who've encouraged me. I have a great team that I work with. We are small but mighty. There's 4 of us for 800 people. and we all jump in and do what needs to be done, because we have a big poster when you first walk in to the Facilities Management Academy, and it says, "We're here to make good things happen for other people."
Mm.
And that's
Yeah.
what we're about.
Yeah. So that actually is good too. Maybe this is because I think people listening to this, might think that this is a huge, giant, because we've been building it up talking about this program, but you have 4 people, 4 full-time,
Yep. 4 full-time
four
people,
full-time people for this entire program that's been developed and for maintaining continuous learning for over 800 people.
800 people. Mhm.
I mean, that I think can help people see that this is possible, something that they could do. What are some other things you think, small steps people could take if there's people who are struggling and seeing that 5 doesn't equal 2, recognizing that
Mhm.
they're have current gaps in their workforce or future coming up gaps soon? What would you say, just a
Mhm.
couple of small things they could do?
Um, First of all, never underestimate small. Never underestimate small. Because oftentimes what happens, you see a lot of organizations go into a big initiative and a big effort and a big push, and we're going to do this and we're going to be successful at it. And then one or two things fall off and they start
Mhm.
to trickle down. And then people say, like, "Oh, I don't know, we were going to go be the best in the world, but now we're like Avis. We try harder. We're number 2. We're falling down." And so I think starting small and understanding the parameters that you have to work within. I think networking is so important. And when I have interns, I talk to them all the time about how critical networking will be for their career. You can never, ever dismiss the importance of networking, to get ideas, to meet people, to get inspired, to, even take a pearl of wisdom from someone. Networking is so, so important. Managing expectations is
Mhm.
really important. And I think with managing expectations, being very deliberate and small, a lot of the programs that I did, they started off and I just referred to them, this is a pilot program.
Mhm.
And you're allowed to make less than perfect decisions with a pilot program.
Yeah.
In fact, in life, you're allowed to make less than perfect decisions. The key is, what do you learn and how do you apply it?
Yeah.
Because stagnant knowledge is not helpful knowledge. Knowledge in action, that is how you apply new ideas, new thoughts, new skills, and you learn and you grow. So I would say manage expectations well, start small, refer to it as a pilot program, but make sure that your organization also has the perspective that mistakes are okay to make, not just in these little pilot programs, but in everyday work. We're
Yeah.
all human. We all make mistakes. The harm that the wrong kind of culture, organizational culture and environment can do is if open and candid and constructive communication from a good place is not practiced there. Communication goes underground and efforts slow down and people slow down and they check out. When teams are not allowed to make a mistake and then talk about what we learned, and I don't mean just go through the process of having an after action, but actually really sit down and talk about, this is what we thought was going to come out of it. This is what
Yeah.
came out of it. How can we adjust and adapt? And when everybody at every level feels like they can make a mistake and they're not going to be chastised or belittled or diminished or ignored or treated poorly because they made a mistake, that is what leads to high performance teams.
Yeah.
They have that grace to be able to make those mistakes. Now, if
Yeah.
you make the same mistake 14 times in a row within 2
Yeah.
weeks, then we've got to have another conversation.
Yeah.
But teams that don't feel like they can suggest new ideas or challenge the status quo or communicate constructively with everybody, and that includes from the top to the middle to the bottom of the organization. If they don't feel like they can, then that communication goes underground. Rumor mills start popping up, and then it's like that old game of telephone.
Yeah.
Maybe as a leader, you say, we're going to do this, this, and this. And by the time it circulates through all of the informal communication channels that have developed because the formal communication channels were not constructive,
Yeah.
it looks very different at the end.
Yeah.
Looks
And
very,
sometimes
very different.
it sounds like with your program too, maybe it's not always mistakes, but it's just, it wasn't the outcome you were expecting. So you just pivot a
Mhm.
little and you go maybe a little different path, we should focus on a different competency or a different
Mhm.
course to help us get what we need.
I've learned a tremendous amount with this first group going through our NCCER training. And it was funny because I told them they were going to be the first group. And they said, oh yeah, Miss Judie, we're your guinea pigs. And I said, you're not my guinea pigs. You are my trailblazers.
There you go.
You are my pioneers in the wagon going west.
Yeah.
And we're going to get there. We're going to
Yeah.
get further than we are right now. So I've learned a lot from these students. I've learned a lot about opening up and asking more questions and being more receptive. They've given me tons of good information as they've gone through this process. And I'm trying to make sure that I apply it because that's how it's going to be woven into our tapestry
Yeah. And the
and
other
not
thing
be
you've,
a standalone.
yeah, the other thing you've mentioned a couple of times throughout here that I think helped get things started or filled in some pieces that people might be able to take away too is looking at your community colleges or other career and technical education programs and seeing what they have to offer.
Mhm. I had this was really interesting. The first bridge group that had I told you they had like parts of the year one of the apprentice program
Yeah.
and of various trades. And when it got to plumbing, I had the instructor all lined up, met with them, really liked them. And they came to me after day one. And again, because I can't take people for a concentrated period of time, I have to take them I took this group for a day a week for 17 weeks for each different trade. I was talking to this person and I said, so this is the way it'll be. It'll be one day a week for 17 weeks. Okay, okay, okay. And he came to me at the end of the first session and he said, these students are really cool. They really want to learn. They're really excited to be here. I said, yeah, I know. Me too. We're excited for them to be there. He said, but I got to tell you, I can't keep on doing this and I was like, what? And he said, because I make more money in one day running my service truck than you are paying me for 17 weeks of teaching one day a week. And I was like, okay, that gave me some perspective.
Mhm.
So looked and looked and looked, found another person to teach. Felt good about it. I said, okay, we're starting over, guys. We're going to do this from square one. He too came to me after day one and said, I can make more money and I've got a family. I've got a kid who's getting ready to graduate from high school and wants to go to college. And I can't, these 17 days, I can make every day what you're paying me for 17 weeks, one day a week. So when I finally found the third one, my whole perspective changed. And I called people I knew who worked at other agencies, in other organizations. I talked to the people who come to my house and do plumbing services. Hey, where do you get your best people? Where do you know? I'm constantly networking like that. And I found a guy who had just retired. And I said, this is only 1 day a week for 17 weeks. He said, that's perfect. That is exactly what I want to be into it. I've worked my whole career.
Yeah.
I'm going to work 1 day a week now and have a little fun.
Mhm.
And then the other 6 days of the week are mine to do with what I want.
Yeah.
So that's kind of gotten me to when people come out and perform service work at my home, I'm like, you know, anybody who's getting ready to retire, who just like to keep their toe in the water?
Yeah.
And so, you know, finding them that way is just, you know, I've had to just adapt so much. And I think that's what we all have to do in facilities. And if somebody would have sat down with me in 2007 and said, you know, 1 day this is going to be this big complex machine and you've got over 80 classes that you teach and teach at all different levels of the organization, I would have been like, okay, how many people are on my team?
Right.
And they would have said like 12 or 15. And I would have said, okay, I think that's doable. If they would have said to me 4, I would have said, oh, now we need to have the expectations conversation because now we need to scale it back. But the nice thing about being adaptable is there are times when the conditions are right and we can go. And then when the conditions are no longer right, we pivot and maybe we adjust. But one thing I do want to make everybody aware of, do not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. If you have something that is pretty darn good and works pretty well for you, keep doing that. And try to even maybe build it in a little bit more to be a little bit more structured or a little bit more of the part of the way the organization works. If you spend all of your time trying to achieve the best curriculum, the best training, the best instructors, the most opportune time of year, the best circumstances, you will be constantly on that little wheel that you know, the hamsters run around on.
Yeah.
You'll be seeing the same scenery. You'll be in motion a lot, but the same scenery with the same or diminishing results. And I think that's one of the things that has been most helpful to me. And one of the things that I really credit my leadership with is being very candid with me. This is what we need to do now. This is what we can't do now.
Yeah.
And then I try to figure, okay, is there some way I could still do a little bit of what we were doing before
Yeah.
and just do it a little differently, like the Wage Leadership Development Program. Let's bring it in-house. And also I have very few classes that are just standalone classes. I try to make sure that I have a curriculum that include more than one thing in them. You know, for the leadership training, we focus a lot on accountability and feedback and an outward mindset. And, you know, for the technical training, it's, you know, maybe a 3-day class on, you know, electrical troubleshooting. And it's not just one thing, it's all kinds of things
Yeah.
in there. I don't want to have, you can't make any one thing serve exclusively multiple purposes because it will be diminished. But if you focus on, you know, what are the things we're trying to do here? And let's put our energy and our efforts there. And okay, the budget looks bad, we'll compress a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we can't hire the people that we want. What is the saying? You fight the war with the soldiers you have, not the ones you wish you had.
Yeah.
And we just need to adapt. And
Yeah.
facilities knows how to do that on systems and equipment and every component of our assets. We know how to do that, but we haven't always applied those same skill sets to adapting with people and learning and expanding our knowledge base.
Yeah. Well, we've taken a lot of your time today, and I just kind of want to close with a question to kind of go back to the beginning where we talked about 2007, one room and a vision. You had your one small room that you were getting. I love that I didn't even realize you had to put up your own drywall, right, to create a room. So what are you most proud of? Are you most proud of this
Oh,
academy,
gosh.
the programs, the people whose careers you've impacted so much? What are you most proud of?
That is a very, very unfair question, Maureen, because all of
All
those
of it.
things are so intertwined. I can't separate them. Um, I'm very proud to be working for the Smithsonian. I'm very proud to be working in facilities at the Smithsonian. I'm very proud to be working for the people that I work for. I'm very proud to be working with the people that I work with. Um, I'm I am very fortunate in so many things. I think one of the things that really kind of was like cold water splashed on me was when our director, Tony, came here 3.5 years ago, and he walked in with the guiding principles of people safety service. And some people said, oh, well, that's a slogan. And the more I learned about him and the more I talked with him and the more I looked at our organizational knowledge and how important it is, the more that I really focused on it. That's what it is. It's people safety service. I mean, we are here to serve the people who come to visit us, the people who depend on us and rely on us. And that includes the people who work for us. They depend on us and rely on us too. Um, those just 3 words. When I heard him say that, and I looked at the poster hanging on the wall that said, "We're here to make good things happen for other people," I thought, yeah, we're very in sync with, what we think is needed for an organization to be successful, because an organization can't be successful unless the people in it are successful.
Yeah.
And so he really spoke to me with that. Um, Having those conversations with people, thinking back and remembering when Carl said to me, if I ever make more than minimum wage, I'll be good. And to look at him now and to be calling him and saying, can you come with me to a job fair
Yeah.
and talk with people about your experience? The fact that we never, ever does a week go by that I'm not contacted by 2 or 3 people. Miss Judie, can you talk to me? I think I want to learn more about this, or can you help me? Or can you help me figure out what an IDP would look like for me? And the nice thing is that every path is so unique. You cannot prescribe a path for someone's career. You can present opportunities,
Mm.
and you can show where this might build on this, which will then build on this. You can show all that, but to have conversations with somebody in the IDP class, our IDP has 72 questions that every student has to answer. And it doesn't matter if they're a building manager or a building service worker. It's those same 72 questions. And then we use that as our conversation to really come up with what a good IDP for them would look like, because it speaks to them. And when something speaks to them, they'll bring it back to the organization. So I walk in here every day, and this is my happy place. This is remembering that mouse running across my foot. And actually, the drywall that was held up, it was actually a storage cage. So we had chain link fence
Yeah.
around us. and we held the drywall up with zip ties to just give the illusion
Yeah,
that
of a
that
room.
of a room, and that we were important enough to have a room. And now to walk in here and see our tools and our equipment and our computers, and people send me notes saying, "Thank you so much, Miss Judie. I just got selected for a leader position." That is awesome. And
Yeah.
I get to hear those things very frequently. And that's what makes me happy. It's like putting the people and the resources and the processes together to make something that is so good, to serve an enterprise that is so good and so important.
Yeah. That's so great. I love hearing all that. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. This has been a wonderful talk and a lot of resources. And we will work to put a link to all those resources that Judy mentioned throughout the podcast
Wonderful.
when we put this up. So, yeah, to help everybody. So, thank you again.
Well, thank you, Maureen, for the opportunity. And I hope that everybody got a little something out of this that they can apply in their organization, because that one little something applied correctly becomes a bigger something, and then it becomes a bigger something.
And it can be
Okay.
your little something can be a really big something to someone else. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Never underestimate the little somethings,
Yeah.
because they can be game changers.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much for the opportunity, Maureen. I appreciate it. And thanks to FEA for providing this platform for a lot of people to get a lot of good information.
Thank you.